All right, so let's jump right into it. Today we're looking at the top cybersecurity news straight from CybersecurityHQ, hot off the press for November 18th, 2024.
Oh, sounds like we've got a lot to cover today.
We do. We've got vulnerabilities, attacks, and a few other pretty interesting developments that are definitely going to impact the work that you're doing out there.
All right, well, let's get to it. What's first?
VMware dropped a pretty big bombshell. Urgent warning about active exploitation going on right now of a super critical vulnerability. And it's in their vCenter server.
Okay, active exploitation. So this is something that everybody needs to be aware of right now.
Absolutely. This is not just any vulnerability. It's got a severity score of 9.8 out of 10.
9.8. Oof. That's definitely going to get people's attention.
Yeah, it's officially tracked as CVE 2024-38812, and it allows for remote code execution.
Oh, wow. So full control of the server, basically.
Well, basically, and to make matters worse, VMware released those initial patches back in September, but they were, well, let's just say they were a little incomplete. So there's a lot of systems out there that are still wide open.
So we're talking about a ticking time bomb here, and especially given that vCenter server, I mean, that's the heart and soul of a lot of organizations' virtualized environments.
It's the command center.
Yeah.
It manages virtual machines, data centers, even cloud deployments. If somebody gets control of a vCenter server, it's like handing over the keys to the entire kingdom.
Yeah, you're not kidding. So what's the root cause of this vulnerability? What's the technical breakdown here?
Okay, so buckle up. It's a heap overflow issue. It's within the DCPC protocol that vCenter server uses.
Ah, okay. So imagine you've got like a container. It's got a fixed size, right? But an attacker manages to stuff way more data into it than it can handle.
And that overflow can then be manipulated to basically run any malicious code that they want on that server.
Okay, so that's a pretty technical breakdown, but I imagine our listeners are pretty familiar with the whole concept of heap overflows. So for organizations out there scrambling to secure their systems, what's the best course of action?
Patching. Priority number one, VMware's got an updated security bulletin. It's VMSA 2024-0019. It's got the fixes that you need. But there's a catch. They haven't actually released any specific indicators of compromise.
Ah, so we're flying a little bit blind here.
Yeah, so you need to be proactively monitoring your vCenter server instances for any little thing that looks suspicious. Don't just wait for an alert. You need to be out there hunting those threats down.
That brings up an interesting point about threat intelligence in general. We hear a lot about IOCs these days, but are those generic IOCs really doing the job anymore?
I mean, it's like trying to find, a needle in a haystack. Okay, but the haystack's on fire and somebody keeps dumping more hay on top of it.
Right.
Generic IOCs, they just lead to, an insane number of alerts. And a lot of them are just false positives.
Right, it's just noise.
Exactly. It's just noise.
Yeah.
And it buries security teams. They just can't pick out the real threats.
Yeah, and you know what else? They also lack the context. The specific context that each organization needs for the unique threats that they face, right? It's like using a generic map to navigate a super complex city. Yeah, you're going to get a basic overview, but it's not going to tell you about those back alleys, the shortcuts, and all the things you really need to know.
Exactly. And that's where custom IOCs come in.
Right.
They're tailored. They're built for a company's specific environment, their industry, their threat landscape.
Right. It's like having a personalized roadmap that can take you directly to what you need. It helps you optimize your defenses.
Exactly.
So custom IOCs, they're crucial. They're also crucial for two other things: supply chain security and regulatory compliance.
So let's unpack those a little bit. How do custom IOCs fit into the picture there?
Well, with custom IOCs, companies can proactively monitor threats coming from their third-party vendors or partners. Think back to SolarWinds. That was a really chilling reminder of how vulnerable those supply chains can be.
Yeah.
And custom IOCs can act as an early warning system, flagging suspicious activity that might just slip through the cracks otherwise.
Okay.
And on the compliance side, they can be designed to detect activities that specifically violate certain regulatory frameworks, like GDPR or NIST. It's all about staying ahead of that compliance curve.
It's about being proactive. And speaking of proactive security, our next story, it's a reminder that even outdated technology can come back to bite you. We're talking about those discontinued GeoVision video surveillance products, the ones that are currently under attack right now.
Ah, yeah. This is a perfect case of out of sight, out of mind security gone wrong. So botnets are actively exploiting a zero-day vulnerability. It's tracked as CVE 2024-120, and it's in these discontinued devices.
So this vulnerability, it gives attackers the ability to run any command they want. It's basically, they have full control.
Yeah.
And before you think, oh, those old devices, who uses those anymore? You might want to think again. Reports are saying that almost 17,000 of these devices are still exposed online. Half of them are right here in the U.S.
Thousands of potential entry points just ripe for the picking. And what's worse, since these models have reached their end of life, there's not going to be any patches coming from GeoVision.
So, if you or anybody listening are still using these devices, disconnect them from the internet. Like, now. Seriously, do it right now. This is a serious wake-up call. Companies need to have a plan for when they replace end-of-life technology. Delaying upgrades, that's not just about missing out on new features. It's a massive security liability.
Couldn't agree more. Neglecting those legacy systems, it's just asking for trouble. Okay, let's switch gears for a second and talk about the healthcare sector. There's been a huge ransomware attack at Great Plains Regional Medical Center. It's in Oklahoma.
Yeah, this attack started back on September 5th, and it's compromised the personal data of over 133,000 people. And we're not talking just names and addresses. We're talking social security numbers, driver's license numbers, health insurance info, even sensitive medical stuff, diagnoses, medications, you name it.
It's a stark reminder of the responsibility healthcare organizations have when it comes to protecting patient data. That kind of information in the wrong hands, well, the potential for harm is unimaginable.
So what's the aftermath of this attack? What steps have been taken and, what are the long-term implications going to be?
Well, the medical center is working to restore systems from backups. But some files are just gone, unrecoverable. They've started notifying those affected individuals, and they're offering free credit monitoring and identity theft protection, at least for those whose SSNs and driver's license numbers were stolen. But the damage goes far beyond the immediate costs. I mean, this breach could hurt the medical center's reputation.
Yeah.
It could erode patient trust, and it could even lead to legal issues down the road.
Yeah, it's a reminder that ransomware isn't just a technical problem. It's a business problem, a legal problem. It's a human problem. Speaking of critical infrastructure, there's a new report out that reveals some pretty significant cybersecurity vulnerabilities in U.S. drinking water systems.
This report, it was put out by the EPA's Office of Inspector General, and it doesn't paint a pretty picture. Over 300 drinking water systems are vulnerable to cyber attacks, and that could affect service for 110 million people.
Wow.
That's a third of the U.S. population.
A third? That's unbelievable. What kind of vulnerabilities are we talking about here?
We're talking denial of service attacks. That could completely shut down water delivery systems, compromised customer information, and even the possibility of attackers actually manipulating critical water infrastructure. We're not just talking about leaks. We're talking about disrupting a fundamental human need.
That's frightening.
It is, and the numbers get even worse. 97 of those systems, they serve about 27 million people. They have vulnerabilities that are classified as critical or high severity, and another 211 serving 83 million have medium or low severity issues. Things like exposed open portals, just waiting for somebody to exploit them.
That's essentially open doors.
Basically. And this report, it should be a wake-up call for the water sector. We just saw a glimpse of what could happen with that attack on American Water back in October.
Yeah.
Thankfully, water service wasn't disrupted then, but it shows how real the possibility for chaos is.
Yeah, and you have to think about the ripple effects too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Disrupting water services could impact public health, sanitation, firefighting even, the economy.
Yeah, you're talking national security here.
This is serious stuff.
It really is. We can't afford to be complacent when it comes to our critical infrastructure. All right, let's talk about Palo Alto Networks. They just released some crucial information, indicators of compromise, IOCs, for a really critical zero-day vulnerability. It's in their PenOS firewall management interface.
Okay, 0-day, that's never good.
No, it's not. This one is particularly bad. It allows for unauthenticated remote code execution, so attackers can exploit this without needing any credentials.
Oh, wow.
Talk about a free pass, right? The IOCs that Palo Alto released include 3 IP addresses and a checksum that's associated with a web shell that's being used in these attacks.
Okay, so what is a web shell?
It's basically a backdoor. Attackers can use it to control a compromised system.
Okay, so we're talking about a stealthy and really devastating attack vector here. What's the advice for organizations that are running PenOS firewalls?
Well, immediate action is key. Palo Alto strongly recommends restricting access to the management interface. Limit it to just trusted internal IP addresses. Lock it down tight. They haven't released patches yet, a CVE identifier is still pending. But having those IOCs is a crucial first step in detecting and mitigating potential attacks.
This really underscores the need to limit exposure to the public internet, especially for critical infrastructure interfaces. I mean, it's like leaving your front door wide open.
Yeah, pretty much. You're just asking for trouble. Now let's look at another critical vulnerability. This time, it's in the Fortinet VPN client for Windows. And here's the real kicker. It's still unpatched.
Oh no, even though it's being actively exploited.
That's right. This zero-day is being exploited by a really nasty piece of malware. It's called deep data. Deep data is a sophisticated surveillance tool, and security researchers have linked it to the China-backed APT41 group.
APT41, so we're talking state-sponsored, right?
Like, got it. We're talking about a state-sponsored actor,
Okay.
and they've got serious resources and capabilities.
So deep data is the weapon, APT41 is the one wielding it. What kind of damage can this deep data do?
Well, it's designed to be a silent thief, steal sensitive data, things like credentials that are stored in browsers, communication apps, password managers. It can even record audio using system microphones.
That is a serious privacy nightmare. I mean, imagine all the sensitive information that this could be stealing. Corporate secrets, government communications, personal conversations.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg.
So who are the main targets here?
Well, Velexity, they're the ones that discovered this. They've seen deep data used against journalists and activists in Southeast Asia. So APT41, they're probably targeting people involved in sensitive political activities, people who might pose a threat to China's interests.
Yeah. This situation definitely highlights the urgent need for Fortinet to release those patches. But it also brings up a bigger question. What is the responsibility of vendors in addressing vulnerabilities? Especially ones that are being actively exploited right now. We need action. We don't need radio silence.
Agreed. Organizations can't afford to just sit around and wait for a patch. Multi-factor authentication, deploying endpoint detection and response solutions, those are essential steps in mitigating the risks of unpatched vulnerabilities.
Absolutely. Let's move on to data breaches. Annie Mac Home Mortgage just disclosed a breach that affects a whopping 171,000 people.
Oh, wow. Okay, tell me more about that.
So it happened between August 21st and August 23rd. Attackers got their hands on files containing names, social security numbers, all kinds of stuff.
Another stark reminder that data breaches are a constant threat, especially in the financial sector. These institutions hold a ton of sensitive data, financial data, personal data. They're basically a treasure trove for cybercriminals.
Yeah, so what has Annie Mac done to address this? Are they just sweeping it under the rug?
Well, they've launched an investigation, which is, standard procedure. They've implemented enhanced security measures, although they haven't said exactly what those are. And to their credit, they're offering free credit monitoring and identity theft protection services to those who are affected.
Okay,
So at least there's that.
that's good. So is there any evidence that the stolen data has been used?
So far, no. But it's always a waiting game, right? Just watching to see if that data surfaces somewhere in those dark corners of the internet.
Yeah. And even if it doesn't lead to fraud, I mean, think of the reputational damage.
Oh, absolutely. That's a huge hit.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Customers trust these institutions with some of their most sensitive data.
Right.
And breaches like this, they just erode that trust.
They do. And it's a lesson for all organizations. Robust security, continuous monitoring, well-rehearsed incident response plans. Those aren't optional anymore.
They are essential.
They are. And in another development that really underscores how connected all these cyber threats are, T-Mobile has been swept up in that hacking campaign targeting U.S. telecom companies. The one attributed to the Chinese cyber espionage group, Salt Typhoon.
Oh yeah, Salt Typhoon. So this is following that Wall Street Journal report about all their activity.
That's right. Breaching telecom networks, compromising wiretap systems, possibly even getting into private communications. It's a serious escalation, especially considering T-Mobile's history with data breaches.
Oh yeah, they've had some major breaches.
Millions of customers affected.
Yeah.
T-Mobile, they acknowledge that there's an ongoing threat, but so far, they claim they haven't found evidence that customer data or other sensitive information was actually stolen.
Well, given their track record, I bet a lot of customers are having some major deja vu right about now.
I wouldn't blame them. Think about all the data that telecom companies hold. Call records, location data, text messages, even the actual content of some communications.
It's a gold mine for intelligence agencies, a nightmare for privacy advocates.
Exactly. And the Wall Street Journal's report suggests that Salt Typhoon, their main goal was stealing that customer call record data. They were trying to intercept the communications of specific people involved in government or political activities.
So espionage, basically.
Yep. And these attacks just show how vulnerable critical infrastructure like telecom networks really are. They're the backbone of our modern society, and compromising them can have huge consequences, not just for communications, but for commerce, even for national security.
So let's dive into the world of malware. A new and particularly stealthy malware loader has been found. It's called Babel Loader, and it's causing quite a stir among security researchers.
Babel Loader, it's basically a delivery mechanism. It delivers other malicious payloads, mainly info-stealing malware, like Whitesnake and Medusa. It's dangerous because it flies under the radar. It evades detection by traditional antivirus software and even sandbox environments.
So how does it stay so stealthy?
It's got a few tricks up its sleeve. It uses junk code, which is basically meaningless code that confuses security scanners, metamorphic transformations where it actually changes its own code to make it harder to detect, and it leverages runtime function resolution. So it hides its true intentions until the very last moment. When it executes, it's like a master of disguise.
That is some seriously sophisticated malware. So how's this Babel Loader being spread?
Well, it often disguises itself as cracked software or maybe a really cool accounting tool.
Right.
People fall for it because they want something for free or they're looking for a shortcut. Once it's running, Babel Loader kicks into gear, it downloads and decrypts the malicious payload, and boom, the system's infected with the info stealer.
So it's technically sophisticated and uses social engineering. Who are they targeting with this?
Well, it seems like they're casting a pretty wide net. English and Russian-speaking regions. But there's a particular focus on people working in finance and admin roles. Those people often have access to sensitive financial info and systems.
Makes sense. They're going after the people who hold the keys to the kingdom.
Exactly. And this just emphasizes how important security awareness training is. We need to teach people to recognize these tactics so they don't fall for something like Babel Loader.
Okay, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about something positive in the world of email privacy. Gmail's testing a new feature. It's called shielded email. It's getting a lot of attention.
This is a good step toward giving people more control over their personal info. With shielded email, people can create single-use email aliases.
Okay.
They can do this when registering for online services or filling out those web forms that everybody loves so much. It's like having a burner email address without having to create and manage multiple accounts.
Yeah, so instead of handing over your real email address, you create this temporary one, and it forwards messages to your main Gmail account. So you mask your true identity, you reduce the risk of getting spammed, and you're less likely to be targeted by phishing attacks.
Exactly. It's an idea that's been gaining some ground in the past few years. Apple's got their Hide My Email feature, Bitwarden, DuckDuckGo, they offer similar things. It's clear that people want more privacy features.
It's nice to see companies like Google actually prioritizing user privacy. It sends a good message. But we can't forget that online privacy is an ongoing battle. As companies make these changes, cybercriminals are trying to figure out how to get around them.
Absolutely. Speaking of cybercriminals, you know they're gearing up for the holidays. Black Friday, Cyber Monday. They're prime time for scams, and this year's no different. In fact, it seems like they're getting more sophisticated than ever.
That's a little scary. What kind of new tricks do they have up their sleeves?
Well, we're seeing a surge in phishing campaigns that specifically target e-commerce shoppers. And it's across Europe and the US. They're using fake websites that look just like real brands. IKEA, LL Bean, North Face, you name it. They promise these crazy discounts so people rush to enter their credit card info and everything. It's a digital siren song, just luring them in.
Okay, so fake websites, they're going after your information. What should shoppers be looking out for? What are the red flags?
Okay, first, double check that URL before you put in any personal or financial info. Attackers, they're using typo-squatting domains, so they're URLs that look almost exactly like the real ones, but there's a tiny misspelling.
So it's like a game of spot the difference.
Yeah, exactly. And they're using those new top-level domains, too, like .shop, .store, .vip.
Oh, okay.
They're trying to make the site look legitimate. Another thing, if the deal seems too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah, I mean, if it's significantly lower than the market price, that's suspicious.
Exactly. And these attackers, they're getting even more clever. They're actually using Google Translate to change the content of the website. It depends on your IP address.
So it looks personalized?
Yeah, personalized to your location, your language. It makes the whole thing seem more believable. And on top of all that, they're using tracking tools like TikTok Pixel and Metapixel to watch what people do on these fake websites. They use that info to fine-tune their tactics, target people more effectively, even sell that data to other bad actors.
So they're learning and getting better all the time.
Yep. It's a pretty disturbing ecosystem. It really is. And to make matters worse, These guys are also using things like TikTok Pixel and Metapixel to track what people do on those websites so they can improve their targeting, they can sell data, the whole 9 yards. It's a mess out there.
It is a mess.
Yeah.
And it seems like these scammers, they're not just casting a wide net anymore. They're getting really good at, zeroing in on specific people.
Oh, absolutely. They're using all the tools at their disposal.
Yeah.
And that brings us to another pretty disturbing discovery that's been rocking the cybersecurity world. Court documents have revealed that NSO Group, the infamous Israeli spyware vendor.
Pegasus.
Pegasus, that's the one. Well, they continue to exploit WhatsApp to install Pegasus even after Meta sued them.
Wait a minute. So they got sued and they just kept going? That's bold.
Oh, yeah. Meta, they filed their lawsuit back in October 2019. They said that NSO Group used a zero-click exploit in WhatsApp's video calling system to get Pegasus onto people's devices.
So even after facing legal action, they just kept doing their thing. That's pretty brazen, even for a company like NSO Group. I mean, how did they even manage to pull that off?
Well, after WhatsApp patched that initial vulnerability, NSO Group, they didn't give up. They came up with a whole new installation vector. They called it Erased. And it was active at least until May 2020. What they did was they exploited WhatsApp's signaling servers. So they redirected victims' devices to these relay servers that NSO controlled.
So they basically hijacked devices without leaving a trace.
Pretty much. It really shows you the lengths that some organizations will go to deploy spyware to get their hands on that private information. I mean, NSO Group, they knew they were facing legal action from a giant, Meta. And they just kept going. It says a lot about the lack of accountability in the spyware industry.
Yeah, no kidding. It's a wild west out there. Not many regulations, even fewer consequences. Companies like Apple and WhatsApp, they've put in security features to make it harder to install spyware, but it's a constant battle. As they get better, the spyware developers are right there with them, finding new ways to exploit vulnerabilities. It's a high-stakes game of chess, and the stakes are incredibly high.
You said it. We're talking mass surveillance, the erosion of privacy, people's lives could be at stake, dissidents, journalists. Scary stuff.
It really is. So on that note, let's talk about another sneaky tactic that's being used to promote fake shopping websites. It's called Black Hat SEO. It basically exploits the trust that we put in search results.
Black Hat SEO, it's all about using unethical practices to manipulate search engine rankings. What these attackers are doing is they're compromising legitimate websites. Then they inject what's called SEO malware that redirects users to these shady sites designed to steal their information.
So you're searching for a deal, you think you're going to a real website, and bam, you're in a digital den of thieves.
That's it. And it can be really hard to tell the difference between a real website and a fake one, especially when you're coming from a search engine you trust. People might put in their credit card details thinking they're buying something, then boom, they've been scammed.
So how do they do it? How do they hijack these websites and mess with search results?
Well, they start by finding websites that already rank high for specific products. These websites, they might be poorly secured, or they might have vulnerabilities. Once they get in, they inject malicious code that changes the website content and links, and it all points to their fake shopping sites. They might even create fake reviews, to make the site look more legit. It's all a big illusion.
So they're not just creating fake websites. They're manipulating the systems we use to find information online. That's scary.
It is, and it means that website owners need to be really careful. Keep their software updated, strong passwords, two-factor authentication, all that good stuff. And they should be regularly scanning their websites for any problems.
And for us regular users, I guess the takeaway is be super careful when you click on links, especially during big shopping events like Black Friday. Always double-check that URL, make sure it's the right website. And if the deal seems too good to be true, it probably is. Trust your gut.
Exactly. Speaking of needing to be extra careful, there's this new phishing campaign going around. It's targeting postal service users, but this time it's in the Balkans. And get this, they're using Apple iMessage.
iMessage, the one that Apple says is super secure.
That's the one. These phishing messages, they look like official notifications from postal services. They say a package couldn't be delivered. And then they tell you to click a link to reschedule delivery or give them more info. It's classic phishing, playing on people's excitement about getting a package. They don't want to delay.
So they click the link. What happens then?
They land on a phishing website that's designed to look exactly like the real postal service website. These fake sites, they ask for a lot of personal info, your name, address, phone number, even financial stuff like your credit card. The attackers, they can then use this information to steal your identity, empty your bank accounts, or even just sell it to other criminals.
So what can people do to protect themselves from these iMessage phishing scams?
Be suspicious of any message about package deliveries, especially if you're not expecting anything. Look at the sender. If you don't recognize them, be extra careful. If anything seems off, don't click the link. Go to the official website of the Postal Service or call them to check. And never, ever give out your personal or financial info unless you're absolutely sure who you're talking to. It's always better to be safe than sorry.
Great advice. And in some good news, Apple just released some new security features in their latest iOS update, 18.2. They're designed to fight spyware threats.
Yeah, this is a big deal, especially with all the spyware out there, like Pegasus.
Yeah.
One of the key features is a 72-hour inactivity reboot.
Okay, so what is that? How does that protect you?
So if your iPhone hasn't been unlocked for 72 hours, it automatically reboots and you have to enter your passcode to get back in.
Mm-hmm.
It might seem small, but it can really mess with spyware. A lot of spyware, it needs to stay connected to your device to collect data and spy on you. But when the phone reboots, it breaks that connection. It's like pulling the plug. The spyware has to try and reconnect, which makes it harder to hide.
It's like hitting a reset button.
Exactly. And that 72-hour reboot, that's just one thing Apple's doing. They've also got this new lockdown mode. It makes it even harder for someone to get into your locked device. This all shows that Apple's serious about protecting their users from spyware. It's a good sign.
It is a good sign. Okay, let's change gears again and talk about Elon Musk. Specifically, his plan to cut costs in the U.S. federal government.
Ah, yes, the Department of Government Efficiency, otherwise known as DOGE. It's definitely stirred up some controversy, especially among cybersecurity folks.
Yeah, so what's the problem? Why are people worried?
Well, DOGE, the goal is to cut, get this, $2 trillion from the federal budget. They want to do this by reducing regulatory oversight and streamlining operations. Sounds good in theory, but a lot of people are worried it'll weaken security. And to be honest, Elon's track record at Twitter, firing a ton of people, including those working on security, it doesn't exactly inspire confidence.
It's like trying to fix a leaky faucet by smashing the whole plumbing system.
Yeah.
You might stop the leak, but you're going to create a whole lot of new problems.
Perfect analogy. Experts are worried that DOGE's ideas could lead to weaker cybersecurity standards, less funding for important programs, fewer skilled cybersecurity people, and relaxed regulations. Not a good combination.
It's like fighting a wildfire with a garden hose.
Exactly. And it goes even deeper. Some people think that Elon's own business interests are influencing DOGE's recommendations. His companies, SpaceX and Tesla, they get billions of dollars from the government. So is DOGE really about efficiency, or is it about helping Elon? It's a tricky situation. We'll have to see how it plays out.
It's a definite conflict of interest. The cybersecurity community is going to be watching closely. They won't hesitate to speak up if they see security being compromised. Now, for a more positive story, let's look at South Dakota. They're taking a different approach. They're actually trying to improve cybersecurity. They've launched this new program, the Municipal Cybersecurity Grant Program. It's designed to help their communities stay safe from cyber attacks.
This is great news. They've got a budget of $7 million approved by the legislature, and it's all about making cities and counties more secure.
So what will they be using the money for?
Secure email solutions. Those are crucial for stopping phishing and other email attacks. They'll also provide technical support, risk assessments to find vulnerabilities, and specialized cybersecurity training for government employees.
So they're covering all the bases. It's a timely initiative. Lately, there have been so many attacks on local governments.
You're not kidding. The Center for Internet Security, they said there was a 148% increase in malware incidents last year. And ransomware attacks, those went up by 51%. It's a big problem.
Wow, those are huge increases. Local governments are definitely being targeted.
Yeah, they're seen as easy targets, limited budgets, outdated security. But an attack on a local government, that can be devastating. Disrupted services, public safety at risk. It's a big deal.
So South Dakota, they're being proactive. They're setting a good example for other states. It shows that cybersecurity isn't just a federal issue, it's a local one too. We all need to work together to stay safe.
Absolutely. And speaking of staying safe, we have a warning from across the pond. The head of the UK's National Cybersecurity Centre, or NCSC, he's saying that Black Friday is becoming Black Fraud Day.
Black Fraud Day. Okay, that's kind of catchy, but not in a good way. What's causing this huge spike in scams?
Well, Richard Horn, he's the CEO of the NCSC, he says it's a combination of things. You've got a ton of people shopping online. There are all these amazing deals that tempt people, and everyone's in a rush to get the best bargains. It's the perfect storm for scammers.
And they're getting really good at it. They're playing on people's trust, exploiting the systems we use.
Exactly. And the financial damage is huge. Last year, over 11.5 million was stolen from UK shoppers during the holidays. The average victim lost $695. And get this, 43% of those scams, they started on social media.
Social media, yeah, it's become a breeding ground for scams.
It has. So the NCSC, they're recommending a few things to stay safe. First, turn on two-step verification on all your accounts.
That's a good one. It makes it much harder for someone to get into your account, even if they have your password.
Exactly. They also say use your credit card for online purchases. Credit cards usually have better fraud protection than debit cards.
That's good advice. Always good to use those extra security features.
And lastly, be careful about links, especially those that come through social media or messaging apps. Always check the sender's address, make sure the website is real before you click anything or give them any info.
So it's all about being cautious and using common sense.
Exactly. And speaking of scams, remember that story about the husband who became a vigilante hacker? His wife fell victim to that smishing scam, the one with the fake USPS text. Well, this guy, Grant Smith, he's a cybersecurity expert. He decided to fight back.
Yeah, I love that story. It's like a real-life superhero.
He's the real deal. So Grant, he found out that his wife got this text, and it told her to enter her personal info and billing details on a fake website.
Smishing, yeah, those SMS phishing attempts, they're everywhere these days.
They are, and they're getting really good at making them look real. It just goes to show that anyone can fall for a scam, even if you're tech savvy.
So this Grant Smith, he didn't just report it to the police, right? He took it a step further.
Oh, yeah, he did. Driven by a thirst for justice and, his deep understanding of how cybercriminals work, he decided to hunt them down.
That's awesome.
It is. Over a few months, he followed their digital trail. He figured out how they were operating. He traced it back to a Chinese language system. And get this, he exposed their whole network, and you recovered data from, wait for it, 390,000 stolen credit cards.
390,000. That's incredible. He's like a digital detective.
He is. He ended up giving everything he found to the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, the USPIS.
Yeah.
They're doing a full-blown investigation now. This story shows that we're not helpless against cybercrime. We can fight back. We can expose these criminals.
And we can get justice.
Exactly. It also shows how important cybersecurity skills are. Grant Smith, he knew how to understand the technical stuff, and he knew how to navigate the cybercriminal world. It's a great argument for more cybersecurity education.
I agree. Now let's switch gears again. The telecom giant? 3, they've issued a warning about a massive spike in Black Friday scam messages. Their customers are being bombarded.
Yeah, it seems like Black Friday is open season for scammers.
Yeah.
Last year, 3, they were getting reports of an average of 3,500 scams every day during this period.
Every day.
Every day. And this year, it's even worse. The monthly scam volume, it's already 170,000 higher than all of 2023.
That's a massive increase. So what are these scammers doing? How are they targeting 3's customers?
Well, they pretend to be big retailers or delivery companies. They send messages that look real. They talk about promotions, delivery problems, issues with your account, those sorts of things. And these messages, they have links that lead to phishing websites. They're trying to steal logins, passwords, credit card details, you name it.
So they're tricking people by using names they recognize and trust.
Exactly. And it can have terrible consequences. People can lose money, their identity, their devices can get infected with malware.
So what's 3 doing about it? Are they just letting it happen?
No, they're telling their customers to be extra careful. Check any messages they get, especially if they seem weird or too good to be true.
Good advice.
They're also telling people to verify promotions or delivery notifications by going directly to the retailer's or the delivery company's website. Don't just click the link in the message.
Right.
3 has also set up spam filters to try and block known bad senders, and they're asking customers to report any suspicious messages they get.
So they can block those too. It's good to see that they're doing something.
It is, and it shows that everyone has a part to play in this. The telecom companies need to protect their customers, but people also need to take steps to protect themselves.
Right. We can't just rely on others to do it for us. We have to be proactive. Now let's talk about AI. Artificial intelligence is changing the world, and not always for the better. It's starting to play a bigger and bigger role in scams.
AI is a powerful tool, and unfortunately, scammers are using it to create more believable and sophisticated scams. They're getting really good at tricking even the most careful people.
Okay, so how are they using AI?
Well, they use it to personalize phishing emails,
Okay,
so they look much more real and convincing. They can even create deep fakes, those super realistic fake videos and audio recordings. They can use those to spread misinformation or pretend to be someone else.
that's scary. So as AI gets better, are we just going to see more and more scams that are impossible to spot?
It's definitely a challenge, but we're not helpless. We need to be more careful than ever. Double-check everything online, verify information from official sources, and only trust reliable sources. And we need to educate people, help them understand how AI can be used for scams and how to avoid them. Knowledge is power.
Absolutely. So let's switch gears again. Some good news this time. Canada is investing $3.9 million in Malaysian cybersecurity.
That's right. They're supporting Malaysia's Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, or CCO. It's all about working together to fight cyber threats. It's a global issue.
So what are they hoping to achieve with this investment?
They want to train 3,500 cybersecurity professionals in Malaysia and other ASEAN countries. It's about building capacity in the region.
That's a great initiative. What will the training focus on?
It'll cover a lot of areas: incident response, threat intelligence, ethical hacking, secure coding practices. They'll also offer certifications and scholarships. And they're putting a special emphasis on getting more women into cybersecurity leadership roles.
That's fantastic. We need more diversity in the field.
Absolutely. This whole initiative is part of Canada's Indo-Pacific strategy. They recognize that cybersecurity cooperation is essential. It's a win-win. By helping their partners in Southeast Asia, Canada is also making the digital world a safer place for everyone.
Okay, let's get a little more technical. There's a critical vulnerability in Samba Active Directory that everyone needs to know about. It's been designated CDE 2023-3961.
Yeah, this one's serious. It affects Samba versions 4.13.0 and later when they're configured as an Active Directory domain controller. If attackers exploit this, they can escalate privileges and potentially take over the whole domain.
So how does this vulnerability work? What's the technical explanation?
It comes down to how access controls are handled for newly created objects. When delegated admins, those who have permission to create objects, well, they end up keeping too many rights over those objects, even sensitive attributes. And that's what attackers can exploit to get in.
So what should organizations do?
Patch, patch, patch. The Samba team has released patches for all the affected versions, so if you're using Samba AD, update your systems now.
But sometimes patching isn't an option right away, especially for large organizations. What should they do in the meantime?
Restrict those delegated admin accounts, give them the bare minimum permissions, do regular Active Directory audits to make sure everything is configured correctly, and of course, keep an eye out for anything suspicious.
Good advice. Now let's talk about phishing again. There's a new tactic making the rounds. It uses Microsoft Visio files to spread malicious stuff. They call it two-step phishing. And it's designed to sneak past those security defenses and trick people into giving up their information.
This is one sneaky tactic. They're using legitimate tools and tricking users into taking specific actions to make it work. Attackers start by sending phishing emails. They make it look like they're coming from real, compromised accounts, so they're more likely to slip past those basic security checks. And these emails, they often have a Visio file attached, a.vsdx file. When you open it, you see this button. It says View Document. Harmless, right? But here's the catch. To see the content, you have to hold down the claw key while you click.
So they're making you do something specific.
Exactly. And that, holding down the claw key, that's what helps it bypass those automated security scanners. They don't usually test for that kind of user interaction, so people click the link, thinking they're just opening a document, and bam, they're redirected to a fake website that steals their info or installs malware.
It's a sneaky way to exploit the gaps in our security systems. What can people do to avoid falling for this?
Be suspicious of emails, especially unexpected ones with attachments, even if they look like they're from someone you know. Double-check the sender's address, and if you're not sure, don't click anything. It's all about education and awareness.
Speaking of things to be aware of, Google Chrome users need to be careful. There's a new wave of drive-by download attacks going around.
These attacks, they exploit flaws in Chrome to redirect people to bad websites without them even knowing.
So how does that even work?
They're using AI to create fake content. And they're using SVGs, scalable vector graphics, to deliver the malicious code.
Okay, so how are they using SVGs?
Well, SVGs are different from other image formats because they can have JavaScript code in them. And this code runs when the image loads. So attackers hide this malicious JavaScript inside the SVG, and when Chrome tries to show the image, it redirects the user to a malicious website or downloads malware without them realizing it. It's like hiding a trap inside something that looks harmless.
So what can Chrome users do to protect themselves?
The best thing is to keep your browser updated. Google releases updates all the time to fix these security problems, so make sure you're running the latest version of Chrome. Also, be careful where you click. If your browser gives you a warning, pay attention to it. Don't click on links you don't trust, especially from senders you don't know.
Okay, so be careful, be suspicious, keep your software updated.
You got it. Now let's talk about Cisco. They bought Splunk a while back, and it's already having a big impact on the cybersecurity industry.
Okay, tell me more. What's happening?
Well, Cisco's security revenue doubled last quarter, and that's mostly because of Splunk. They've integrated Splunk's threat intelligence solutions, and they've expanded their security offerings overall. It shows that Cisco is serious about cybersecurity.
So they're investing in security because they see it as a big growth area.
Exactly. They want to be a leader in the cybersecurity market. And they're not just buying companies like Splunk, they're also building new security solutions and improving what they already have. Cisco's goal is to have this single platform that combines networking, security, and observability. And Splunk is a big part of that plan.
That's a smart move. People want simple, integrated solutions.
Absolutely. Now, for a lighter story, how about this? A group of ethical hackers tricked over 100 dark web hackers. It's a great example of using hacking skills for good.
And I love stories like this. Tell me more. How do they do it?
They created a fake ransomware tool,
Okay.
and they put it on all these dark web forums where cybercriminals hang out. You know, the places where they buy, sell, and trade stolen data and hacking tools. So these criminals, they thought they were getting a real ransomware tool, but when they tried to use it, it backfired. Big time.
Oh, that's fantastic. What happened?
Instead of encrypting files and demanding a ransom, the fake tool actually exposed their systems to the ethical hackers.
So the hackers got hacked.
Exactly. The ethical hackers were able to seize their stolen data and shut down their operations.
It's a classic case of what goes around comes around. It's great to see the good guys win one.
It is, and it shows how effective offensive security can be. By going after the attackers, ethical hackers can stop them in their tracks, make them think twice about doing it again, and they can get valuable information that can help protect everyone.
It's a reminder that sometimes the best defense is a good offense. Now, let's talk about AI again. But this time, the not-so-good side of AI. AI-powered cyber attacks, they're a growing problem.
You're right. AI is making it easier for cyber criminals to launch really sophisticated attacks. They can use it for everything from phishing to automating attacks.
So what makes AI-powered attacks so dangerous? What advantages does AI give the attackers?
Well, first of all, it lets them automate a lot of the tasks that they used to do manually. So they can launch attacks much faster and target way more people. And they can use AI to create really convincing fake content, like emails, websites, social media posts. It's getting harder and harder to spot phishing attempts. It's almost like giving the attackers superpowers.
Yeah, it's like they have an unfair advantage.
They do, and it doesn't stop there. AI can also be used to personalize attacks, making them even more effective.
So how do we even stand a chance? Is it a losing battle?
It's definitely a challenge, but we can fight back. We need to use AI to fight AI.
So it's an arms race.
In a way, yes. We need AI-powered security solutions that can detect and block these advanced attacks. Things like AI-driven email filters, anti-phishing tools, threat intelligence platforms. These tools can analyze tons of data and spot patterns that might indicate malicious activity.
It's about using the same tools as the bad guys, but for good.
Exactly.
Okay, so looking ahead, what are some of the biggest ransomware trends that we should be watching out for in 2025?
Ransomware's here to stay, and it's getting worse. One thing we're seeing more of is double extortion.
Double extortion. Okay, what's that?
It's not enough for them to just encrypt your data and demand a ransom. Now they're stealing sensitive information too, and they threaten to release it publicly unless you pay up.
Oh, they hit you twice. That's rough.
It is, and it makes it much harder to recover from an attack.
Yeah.
Another trend is that AI is making it even easier to launch ransomware attacks. AI can scan for vulnerabilities, find targets, and even automate the whole process of deploying the ransomware.
So basically, anyone can be a ransomware attacker. now.
Pretty much. The barrier to entry is getting lower and lower.
Mhm.
And lastly, we're seeing more targeted attacks. Cyber criminals are going after specific high-value targets like healthcare, finance, critical infrastructure.
So they're doing their homework.
They are. They know that these organizations hold valuable data, can't afford to be offline, and are more likely to pay the ransom.
So it's not just about protecting yourself from any ransomware attack. It's about knowing what's coming and making sure your defenses can handle it.
Exactly. Organizations need to be proactive. Strong security controls like multi-factor authentication, strong passwords, and regular software updates. Regular backups and testing your recovery plans are also important. And don't forget about your employees. They're often the weakest link. Educate them about ransomware and phishing.
Right. Security isn't just about technology. It's about people, too.
Absolutely.
Like-
We need to create a culture of security awareness in every organization.
And that's where CybersecurityHQ comes in.
That's right. We're a community of over 70,000 cybersecurity professionals. We're all about sharing knowledge, resources, and support.
We offer news, in-depth reports, job postings, and a place to connect with other professionals.
If you want to stay ahead of the game in cybersecurity, check out CybersecurityHQ.
It's a constantly changing world, and we need to work together to stay safe.
Couldn't agree more. And on that note, let's get back to the topic of scams. With Black Friday right around the corner, they're everywhere you look.
It's the season of deals, but it's also the season of scams. Our inboxes are flooded with offers that sound too good to be true.
And often they are. Richard Horn from the NCSC, he's calling Black Friday Black Fraud Day, and he's especially worried about these sophisticated AI-powered scams.
AI is making it so much easier for scammers to trick people.
Last year, UK shoppers lost over 11.5 million to scams during the holidays. The average victim lost 695 CRAs. And almost half of those scams started on social media.
Social media, it's a goldmine for scammers.
It is. That's why the NCSC is urging people to be super careful. First, turn on two-step verification for all your accounts. That extra layer of security can make all the difference.
Two-step verification, that's a must-have these days.
Absolutely. They also recommend using a credit card for online purchases because credit cards usually offer better fraud protection.
That's a good tip.
And as always, be careful with links, especially those from social media or messaging apps. Make sure you know who sent it and double-check the website before you click anything or give them any personal information.
Good old common sense, right?
Exactly.
Now, let's revisit that story about the husband who turned into a cyber vigilante.
Grant Smith, that's his name.
He's a real-life superhero.
He really is. So his wife got this text message. It looked like it was from USPS, the Postal Service, and it told her to go to a website and enter all her info.
Those smishing scams, they're getting really good at making them look official.
They are. But Grant, he saw right through it. He used his cybersecurity skills to track down the scammers.
It's amazing what he did.
It really is. Over a few months, he followed their trail. He uncovered their whole operation, a massive network of scammers. He even managed to recover data from 390,000 stolen credit cards.
That's a huge victory.
It is. He gave everything he found to the USPIS, and now they're investigating. It shows that we don't have to just be victims of cybercrime. We can fight back.
We can make a difference.
Absolutely. And on that note, let's talk about 3 again. They're really concerned about the increase in Black Friday scams targeting their customers.
Yeah, they said they're seeing a massive spike in activity.
Last year, they were getting an average of 3,500 scam reports every day during Black Friday.
That's crazy.
And this year, it's even worse. Their monthly scam volume it's already gone up by 170,000 compared to all of 2023.
That's a huge jump. What are these scammers doing?
They're impersonating popular retailers and delivery companies. They send messages that look like they're from Amazon or FedEx, things like that. They might tell you about a special promotion or say there's a problem with your delivery.
So they try to trick you into clicking a link.
Exactly. And that link takes you to a fake website designed to steal your information, your login details, your credit card number, anything they can get their hands on.
So what's 3 doing to protect its customers?
They're warning people to be careful. Any message you get, especially if it's unexpected, double-check it. Don't just click the link, go to the company's website directly.
Good advice.
And if you see something suspicious, report it to 3. They can block those scammers and help protect everyone. It's a team effort.
It is. We all need to do our part to stay safe online.
Absolutely. And speaking of staying safe, let's talk about AI again. Specifically, how it's being used in scams. It's a growing problem.
Yeah, AI-powered scams are getting more and more sophisticated, It's getting harder to tell what's real and what's fake.
In NCSC, they've reported a 60% increase in AI-powered scams compared to last year. It's a serious issue.
So what can we do?
We need to be more vigilant than ever, double-check everything online, verify information, watch out for unsolicited offers, and if you see something fishy, report it.
Good advice. Okay, on a more positive note, let's
Yeah.
talk about Canada's investment in Malaysian cybersecurity. They're giving $3.9 million to support Malaysia's Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. It's a great example of international cooperation.
It really is. The goal is to train 3,500 cybersecurity professionals in Malaysia and other Southeast Asian countries. It's all about building a stronger cybersecurity workforce in the region.
What will the training focus on?
It'll cover a wide range of topics: incident response, threat intelligence, ethical hacking, secure coding practices. They're also offering certifications and scholarships, and they're making a special effort to get more women into cybersecurity leadership roles.
That's great to hear. Diversity is so important.
Absolutely. Canada's commitment to this initiative shows how interconnected cybersecurity is. We need to work together to create a safer online world for everyone.
Now let's get back to the technical stuff. There's a critical vulnerability in Samba Active Directory. It's been designated CVE 2023-3961. It affects Samba versions 4.13.0 and later when they're set up as an Active Directory domain controller. This vulnerability could give attackers a lot of control over affected systems.
If attackers exploit this, they could potentially compromise the entire domain. It's a serious issue.
So how does it work?
It boils down to how access controls are managed for new objects. When delegated administrators, those with permission to create objects, create something new, they end up with too many rights over those objects. And attackers can use this flaw to get in.
What should organizations do to protect themselves?
The Samba team has released patches for the affected versions, so updating is essential. If patching isn't immediately possible, restrict those delegated administrator accounts, enforce the principle of least privilege, and do regular Active Directory audits.
Patching, restricting privileges, auditing, those are all essential security practices.
Absolutely. They can make a big difference in preventing these types of vulnerabilities from being exploited.
Speaking of exploiting vulnerabilities, remember that new phishing tactic we talked about? The one that uses Microsoft Visio files?
Yeah, the two-step phishing attack.
It's really clever. It uses those Visio files to hide malicious links.
Attackers send emails, often from compromised accounts, with a Visio file attached. Inside the file, there's a button that says View Document, but it requires the user to hold down the Control key while clicking.
And that's how they bypass the security scanners.
Exactly. A lot of scanners don't test for that specific action, so the user thinks they're just opening a document, but they're actually clicking a malicious link.
And that link takes them to a fake website.
Right. A website designed to steal their login credentials or infect their device with malware.
It's a good reminder to be suspicious of any unexpected emails, even if they seem to be from someone you know.
Absolutely. Always check the sender's address, be cautious of attachments, and if you're not sure, don't click anything.
Okay, so we've talked about scams, vulnerabilities, and AI. What about Google Chrome? They've been having some issues with drive-by download attacks.
Yeah, these attacks are exploiting vulnerabilities in Chrome to redirect users to malicious websites. And they're using AI-generated content and SVGs, scalable vector graphics, to make it happen.
So how are they using SVGs?
Well, SVGs can contain JavaScript code that runs when the image loads. Attackers are hiding malicious JavaScript inside SVGs. When Chrome tries to display the image, the malicious code redirects the user to a bad website or downloads malware. It's a sneaky way to exploit a vulnerability.
So what can Chrome users do to protect themselves?
Keep Chrome updated. Google releases security updates regularly, so make sure you have the latest version. And be careful about the websites you visit. If you see a security warning from your browser, don't ignore it, and be wary of any suspicious links.
Good advice. So Cisco's acquisition of Splunk continues to make headlines.
It does. Cisco's security revenue has doubled since they bought Splunk. They've integrated Splunk's threat intelligence solutions, and they're expanding their overall security offerings. They're serious about becoming a leader in the cybersecurity market.
And it seems like a smart move. Organizations need comprehensive security solutions, and Cisco is well-positioned to provide them.
Exactly. They're investing in the right areas.
Now, let's talk about those ethical hackers who outsmarted over 100 dark web hackers. That's a story that deserves a standing ovation.
It's a classic example of fighting fire with fire. They created a fake ransomware tool and distributed it on those dark web forums where cybercriminals hang out.
So the criminals thought they were getting a real ransomware tool.
They did. And when they tried to use it, it backfired spectacularly.
I bet they were surprised.
They were. Instead of encrypting files and demanding a ransom, the tool exposed their own systems to the ethical hackers. It was a brilliant trap.
And the ethical hackers were able to shut them down.
They did. They seized their stolen data and disrupted their operations. It shows that we can fight back against cybercrime. We don't have to just sit back and be victims.
We have the power to make a difference.
We do, and it's important to remember that. Now, let's shift gears and talk about the growing use of artificial intelligence in cyber attacks. It's something that every organization needs to be aware of.
AI is changing the game, and not always in a good way.
AI is making it easier for cybercriminals to launch more sophisticated and effective attacks. And they're using it for everything: generating phishing content, automating tasks, personalizing attacks. It's a real challenge for defenders.
So how do we keep up? How do we defend against AI-powered attacks?
We need to use AI to fight AI. We need AI-powered security solutions, AI-driven email filters, anti-phishing tools, threat intelligence platforms that can analyze massive amounts of data and spot patterns. It's an arms race, but it's one we can win.
And ransomware is still a major threat, but the tactics are changing.
They are. We're seeing an increase in double extortion, where attackers not only encrypt data, but also steal sensitive information, threatening to release it unless the victim pays up. And AI is making it easier to launch these attacks. It can automate tasks and find vulnerabilities. It's a worrying trend.
So what can organizations do to protect themselves?
A multi-layered approach is essential. Strong security controls, like multi-factor authentication, strong passwords, regular software updates, regular backups. Test your recovery procedures, and educate your employees about ransomware and phishing tactics. They're often the weakest link.
Cybersecurity is a team effort.
It is. We need to work together to stay ahead of the threats.
And that's what CybersecurityHQ is all about. We're a community of over 70,000 cybersecurity professionals dedicated to sharing knowledge, resources, and support.
We're here to help you stay informed, advance your career, and build a safer digital world.
So if you're looking to learn more about cybersecurity, connect with other professionals, or find a new job, head over to CybersecurityHQ. We're here to help.
Stay safe, stay informed, and stay connected with CybersecurityHQ.
Until next time, this has been The Deep Dive, signing off.